Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. It's that time again, another 6-month look at draft versus set box performance, and a lot has happened since the last time we looked at this back in September. Of course, now we know there will be no more set boxes, no more draft boxes. They've both been replaced with play boxes, starting with Murders at Karlov Manor. And so we have a complete picture of all the sets we will ever have that had these two types of boxes to compare between each other. There will never be any more. Eventually, all of these will rotate out or otherwise go out of print, and we can get the long term effects and actually, I guess, settle the issue on a final long term outlook on all of this. A couple of other things, the caveats that I normally give with this analysis. Kaggle calculations are very distorted on short time scales because it is taking a projected 1 year compound annual growth rate. And so, if something has not been around for an entire year, it can give very distorted answers, which we kind of see at these last four. The way that I had dealt with this previously was by leaving them out of the analysis if a set was too new. But now that we know there will never again be any new set boxes or draft boxes produced, I went ahead and added everything we had in here. If I'm missing a set, let me know. I think I got all of them, but that's why the percent CAGRs on these four sets can be kind of crazy, especially the most recent one, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, showing 60% compound annual growth rates. Yes, Pokemon does not even get that. Now, small number of expansions so far, and I guess I need to take that so far off of there, but you know what this was essentially here to point out was that there just were not that many. And so, in that other alternate future, which Mark Rosewater didn't let us go down, there may have been more of these forever, perpetually, and we would have gotten to see different, say, ebbs and flows in the design, in the execution over time. We're not going to get to see that now. We only have these, approximately 17 or 16. Time out of print matters. Yes, we only have these four highlighted in blue that are actually out of print. The next four standard ones here, Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow, Kamigawa, and Streets of New Capenna, those will not be out of print until probably another month or two. Now, it could be that they have already seen their final printing, but they will not be officially declared out of print for another month or two, and then they will not rotate out of standard until September of this year. And something that really affects the market at that point is, hey, they're out of print. You won't get any more boxes. It's a scarce asset. And so you can start to get a better idea of what's happening as that supply starts to tighten, the price starts to go up, and the TCG expansion life cycle enters its final part. And we've gotten to see that on the previous block of standard sets that have rotated, Zendikar Rising, Kaldheim, Strixhaven, and AFR. It's really interesting to me because, you know, particularly Strixhaven and AFR, man, those just felt in their own time period back in 2021 and 22. Those just felt printed to oblivion. Absolutely. I mean, you could get those set boxes down in the 80s repeatedly during that time period. And what we started to see now that they've been out of print for a while is some actual appreciation. The market starting to tighten up, and even these AFR set boxes 5.5% CAGR. And remember, that CAGR measurement goes all the way back to release day. And so it's 5.5% even since then. Now, compared to a lot of other assets you may invest in your life, in the TCG world, in the stock market, everywhere else, 5.5% is not a barn burner by any stretch of the imagination. But in comparison to the print to oblivion era of 2021 and 22, it is interesting to see that, kind of as usual, the prices start to come up as the supply tightens. And you know, I've made videos in the past talking about how print runs might not actually matter, and that's something I'm going to need to visit again in the future. But Kaldheim, a real surprise here. 7.2% CAGR on the draft boxes and 9.6% on the set boxes. That's something I've been noticing for many months now, just as I scroll down the page on TCG Player and I see Kaldheim has come up in price surprisingly. And I'll get through a couple last of these caveats. The cruel summer, the magic bear market, and the soft economy. Of course, the cruel summer is over. The magic bear market is over. We're left with a bit of a soft economy. And it looks like that soft landing may be a little more surely out there than we thought 12 and 15 and 18 months ago. But one thing we have not seen yet is a strong bull market for Magic. We're in what I would call the beginnings of a weak bull market. We're definitely on the upswing after Black Friday of 2023, but we have yet to see what these prices do with a strong, sustained bull market in Magic, and I think that will be very interesting. Number 5, there will not be a single winner. Yes, of course, for a long time I've talked about how Baldur's Gate draft boxes are much, much better than Baldur's Gate set boxes in the way they are engineered and priced. And up until this iteration of the analysis, Baldur's Gate draft was doing better than Baldur's Gate set. Now, right now, Baldur's Gate set is ahead by a mere 1.2%. And these CAGR leads here, this is just a straight subtraction. This is not a percentage of a percentage. So that's just 5.7 minus 4.4 is 1.2 with a bunch of rounding going on in the background. So you don't really expect there to always be a single winner. One set to another, there will be differences. And of course, Commander Masters here, the draft boxes are performing better than the set boxes. I'm not entirely sure what to make of that. I know the Commander Masters set boxes, were they the most expensive non-collector box product? Oh, I'm sure there have been oddball things that have been more expensive. I mean, Magic 30 comes to mind, but just as a regular randomized product, somewhat normal, nearly the most expensive thing we've ever seen. So not entirely surprising that it's had difficulty appreciating when it starts at such a high price in the market, took such a rightfully bad stance on it from the beginning. So possible long-term effects aren't in play yet, and that one becomes especially interesting in light of play boosters and the discontinuation of both draft and set boosters. One of the things that proponents of draft boosters outpacing set boosters in the long run would always cite was that draft experience premium, as I called it. And that was people could get a draft box in the future, and with some buddies on a Friday night, they could have a nostalgic experience of re-experiencing that limited environment from that set with that draft booster, doing a little draft at a kitchen table or whatever, at a card store, anywhere else. And I was always a little skeptical on that. I mean, obviously, you could see that would be an effect, but would it have a large overall impact on the market? And I always suspected no, and the reason was the substitution effect. And in economics, you have a substitution effect where if you can get something else that's kind of nearly almost as good, and the price isn't that much different, you might substitute, especially if you're going to save money. And draft boxes always had the ultimate substitution effect on each other, where you could just go out and buy a different draft box that was a little cheaper. Yes, the limited environment would be different because it would be a different constructed set, but you would still get the experience of drafting with your friends around the table on a Friday night or at the local store, but you could do it cheaper. Now, when Mark Rosewater announced the coming play boosters back in November, one of the things he said in his blog post about it was that set boosters had been outselling draft boosters, and in his words, it wasn't even close. And that's not a surprise to me. Set boosters were always better constructed. They were almost always a better value to buy. Just in terms of the number of rare and mythic slots you would get for your money, set boosters were almost always a better use of your money, and they almost always contained cards and treatments that you could not get in the draft boosters. So in my mind, I always thought set boosters were going to perform better in the long run. The other thing that I leaned on in that assessment was WotC was always trying to steer us out of draft boosters and into set boosters. And they were doing that because the margins were better for WotC. They were giving you less cardboard and selling it at a higher price to distribution. And the boxes were smaller, so they could ship more of them more economically. So they got better economies of scale on material production and on shipping. And so it would only make sense that WotC would try to push us harder and harder into set boosters over time, which they did. Over time, they kept cramming more and more and more additional value into set boosters that was not available in draft boosters. And I think all of that really manifests here in the data we're seeing today, that on almost every one of these expansions that had set boosters and had draft boosters, set boosters are appreciating faster. And I think that will, for the most part, continue into the future. Will it ever be a clean sweep? I kind of doubt it, just based on the fact that there's, 16, 17 of these. For the set boosters to stay ahead on every one of them forever, I kind of doubt that. But will it always remain lopsided? I think so. Now, there is one new kind of caveat, a spanner in the works that could be thrown in here. It's that draft boosters are gone now, and play boosters have had to have a significant redesign in order to support the limited environment, to get all the kind of Mad Lib style or ad lib style set creation that WotC likes to do, where it says, yes, white needs a 1-drop creature, it needs 2-drop creatures, it needs a creature removal spell, blue needs a counter spell, and on and on. Well, when you're dealing with sets that have different number of cards, different distributions of rarities like play boosters do, you have to upend that kind of existing skeleton of a set that they would build upon every time. And whether or not they're going to be able to do that successfully is yet to be seen. The market has thus far rejected Murders at Karlov Manor play boosters. Now, there's also the argument that it's rejecting those because they're just too damn expensive. Yes. Essentially, we've gone full circle. We're back at play boosters, which are, in some people's eyes, just disguised draft boosters, but they cost 50% more now. So, we're going to have to wait and see how nostalgic the market becomes for draft boosters, because that substitution effect that we used to have when we would talk about this topic is different now. It is qualitatively changed because there will be no more draft boosters, and play boosters are so much more expensive than draft boosters ever were. And so it may be that draft experience premium becomes a bigger effect in the future than we thought it might be in the past. So that's one of the big things to look for in the future as I do more of these updates going forward. But for now, set boosters are still the clear winner. And, when you look back at the whole history, the short history of set versus draft, it makes sense. WotC was always trying to push us away from draft into set because they made more money off of set boosters. And we should have wanted to be pushed away because they were almost always a better value with better cards in them, with more rares and mythics for our money. And, for the purposes of most of the people on this channel, they take up less volume in our closet because they were just smaller. They were more volumetrically efficient for storing value. So that's the update. I don't see it changing a lot in the future. I'll keep doing these every 6 months for a while. At some point, I'll go to once a year on this analysis. But I think it's just kind of interesting to see how it's shaken out. One thing that has surprised me continuously is to see just how dominant set boosters were. I would have expected set boosters to win, but not to win as decisively as they have so far. So that's really one of the surprising things for me. Let me know what you think, guys. Other information. If I'm missing an expansion out of here, let me know. I think I got them all. But otherwise, any other comments, whatever else you have, post it down below. As always, thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, keeps Final Trade going, and supports me financially on Patreon. I appreciate all of you so much. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.